Got it into Desmond Bain, and they Schroeder stole the ball. Schroeder to the rim, puts it in, and a foul. The Lakers have the lead. How in the world did they take that away?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Transaction History. Last episode, we dove into Los Angeles Clippers forward Kawhi Leonard, and now we'll be diving into the newly acquired Golden State Warriors guard, Dennis Schröder. He's had a lot of moves in his career, so we got a lot to cover here. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment who you want to see next on Transaction History. Let's get straight into this. Coming off a first-round exit in the 2013 playoffs, the Atlanta Hawks had a solid core of Josh Smith, Al Horford, Jeff Teague, and Lou Williams on their roster. In the 2013 NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks opted to select Dennis Schröder, guard out of Germany, with the 17th overall pick, coming 2 spots after eventual MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo was selected. Schröder would go on to compete with Sheldon Mack for the backup point guard role to begin his rookie year. Dennis Schröder would go on to spend 5 seasons with the Atlanta Hawks, with the first 3 playing backup to guard Jeff Teague. Teague would eventually leave for the Indiana Pacers in the 2016 offseason, opening way for Dennis Schröder to become the full-time starter. In his 5th and final season, he'd averaged 19.4 points, which remains a career high to this point. However, Atlanta would draft Trae Young out of Oklahoma in the 2018 NBA draft and decide to move on from Schröder in order to hand the keys of the offense to Trae Young. On July 25, 2018, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Atlanta Hawks, and Philadelphia 76ers agreed to a 3-team deal that would send Dennis Schröder and Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot to the Oklahoma City Thunder, with Carmelo Anthony, Justin Anderson, and some picks heading to the Atlanta Hawks, and Mike Muscala heading to the Philadelphia 76ers. OKC made this move in order to acquire an elite backup point guard for Russell Westbrook, and they trade away Carmelo Anthony, who just simply did not work out in Oklahoma City. The projected 2020 first-round pick that was included in the deal eventually conveyed back to OKC that would end up becoming Chet Holmgren in the 2022 NBA draft. Schröder would go on to spend 2 seasons with the Oklahoma City Thunder, making 144 appearances and 16 starts, as he showed tremendous progression as a three-point shooter. Off the bench, he'd have back-to-back top 10 finishes for 6th Man of the Year, with his best being a runner-up performance in 2020. However, it was a tale of 2 seasons for Schröder, as he'd go from a supporting cast of Paul George and Russell Westbrook to that of Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. With OKC trending in a youth movement around Shai, they decided to strike a deal to trade away their 6th Man of the Year candidate. Coming off an NBA championship in the bubble, the Los Angeles Lakers struck a deal on November 18, 2020 to acquire guard Dennis Schröder in exchange for Danny Green and the Lakers' 2020 first-round pick Jaden McDaniels. This deal was a move in order to bolster the depth around Anthony Davis and LeBron, as many key pieces from their championship team had since walked. In his first stop around with the Los Angeles Lakers, Schröder appeared in 61 games, starting all of them as he returned back to the starting point guard role that he hadn't held since leaving the Atlanta Hawks. He'd go on to finish as the 3rd leading scorer on the team, as they would lose in the first round to the Phoenix Suns. However, with his contract expiring and set the test of free agency waters in 2021, he decided to make a move to join a longtime rival of the Los Angeles Lakers. In the 2021 offseason, Schröder would sign a 1-year, $5.89 million deal with the Boston Celtics as he joined the core of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That season, he'd go on to make 49 appearances and 25 starts, splitting his time as a starter and coming off the bench due to injuries on the roster. However, Boston decided that they needed more help on the interior and decided to trade away Schröder ahead of the deadline in 2022. On February 10, 2022, the Houston Rockets and Boston Celtics agreed to a deal that would send Dennis Schröder and reserve bigs Bruno Fernando and Enes Freedom to the Rockets in exchange for Daniel Theis heading to the Celtics. This move would end up helping the Celtics make the finals in 2022 as they go on to lose to the Golden State Warriors. As for the Rockets, they were one of the worst teams in the league, so this move really didn't move the needle for them. As mentioned, this move did not do much for Houston, as they go on to finish the 2021-22 season with the worst record in the NBA. As for Schröder, he would make 15 appearances after the trade in 4 starts, as he'd average only 10.9 points in that stretch. However, Schröder was expiring once again, and it was time for him to return to a familiar location. In the 2022 offseason, the Los Angeles Lakers decided to bring back Dennis Schröder, inking him to a one-year $2.64 million deal. However, this time, Schröder was joining a far different situation. The Lakers had missed the playoffs the season prior and had fired Frank Vogel and brought in first-year head coach Darvin Ham. Schröder would go on to appear in 66 games, making 50 starts, and would finish as the team's fifth leading scorer. However, the Lakers would go on to lose to the NBA champions Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals in 4 games, as Schröder again decided to test the free agency market in the 2023 offseason, this time not joining a familiar team. In an effort to replace Fred VanVleet, who had left for the Houston Rockets that offseason, the Toronto Raptors inked Dennis Schröder to a 2-year, $25.4 million deal. Schröder would go on to appear in 51 games that season, making 33 starts, before the Toronto Raptors made a drastic change to their roster, trading away OG Anunoby to the New York Knicks in a package that brought back Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. With Quickley now taking over as the starting point guard, Toronto had no need for Schröder and decided to trade him away to an Eastern Conference opponent. In an effort to improve their starting point guard position, on February 8th, 2024, the Brooklyn Nets and Toronto Raptors agreed to a deal that would send guard Dennis Schröder and forward Thaddeus Young to the Nets in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie. The Raptors would go on to waive Dinwiddie, and so would the Brooklyn Nets with Thaddeus Young, opening way for Dennis Schröder to join the core of Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges over in Brooklyn. Dennis Schröder would go on to finish out the season with the Brooklyn Nets, starting 25 of his 29 games. In that next offseason, the Nets decided to trade away star wing Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks, opening up more opportunity for guys like Cam Thomas, Cameron Johnson, and Schröder, despite the team looking like they were prepared to tank. However, to start the season off, Schröder was hot, averaging 18.4 points and 6.6 assists for a surprise Nets team that was contending for a play-in spot. However, there was no need for this in Brooklyn, as they were eyeing their pick in the 2025 NBA draft as they had traded for it that offseason, so they decided to trade away Schröder in a deal to a Western Conference contender. Looking to use DeAnthony Melton's expiring contract, given the fact that he was out for the season, on December 15th, 2024, the Golden State Warriors and Brooklyn Nets agreed to a deal that would send Dennis Schröder and a 2022nd via the Miami Heat to the Warriors in exchange for Melton, a 2026 second, a 2028 second, and a 2029 second. This move would allow the Golden State Warriors to add some more offensive firepower, as at the time of recording, it's expected that Schröder will now join the starting lineup alongside Curry. As for the Nets, they acquire 3 draft picks and DeAnthony Melton, who can still be used as a trade asset if they opt to. Now that we're all caught up to where Dennis Schröder is now in his career as a member of the Golden State Warriors, it's time to take a look back at all of the trades that he's been a part of and see what the notable current assets are for each of those teams. Starting off with the Atlanta Hawks, they currently have nothing, as both players in that deal either walked or were waived, and none of the picks involved were conveyed. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, they currently have the 2025 first-round pick from the Philadelphia 76ers, top 6 protected, that they acquired by trading Danny Green to the Sixers for Al Horford. However, they could have also had Alperen Sengun, but they decided to trade him away for 2 picks that weren't conveyed, and they could have had Sengun from the pick that was acquired by trading Al Horford to Kemba Walker in the Boston Celtics deal. Now, with the Boston Celtics, they currently have nothing from that, as Daniel Tice was involved in the Malcolm Brogdon trade, but not enough to be listed. As for the Toronto Raptors, they also have nothing, as Spencer Dinwiddie was later waived after that deal. And as for the Brooklyn Nets, they have all the assets that were mentioned in the past trade. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and make sure to comment below who you want to see next on Transaction History. Otherwise, have a happy holiday season. Peace out.